Well, hello and welcome to Bristol Sport TV, our regular roundup from across the sporting group. Of course, there is nothing regular about the times that we currently find ourselves, as all of us have retreated to our homes to obey the rules around social isolation and come together as a nation to help try and combat the spread of this pandemic COVID-19. So each week, Bristol Sport is going to be broadcasting and talking to stars and players and coaches from across our sporting group to find out how they're staying fit, staying healthy, and of course, staying sane during a difficult time. And I'm pleased to say that my first guest today is Steve Lansdown, our founder and owner. Steve, welcome to you. And perhaps most importantly, I hope you and all of the family are well.
I'm glad to say, Lisa, we are. And we're Maggie and I are staying at home here in Guernsey, and it's not a bad place to be fair, but we find it quite restrictive now after a few weeks of being in the house and getting things delivered to us all the time and not being able to go and see people and meet people. And of course, we're missing Ashton Gate and the crowds there and our friends in Bristol. So that's difficult, but we are well, and that's the main thing.
Well, indeed it is. And as you say, we are living in unprecedented times. No one could have foreseen companies, businesses, sports all coming to this immediate standstill. And it is interesting to see how industries across the globe are coping.
It is unprecedented. And, I've lived through quite a few sort of stock market corrections and economic downturns, but nothing quite like this. And I always used to refer to October 1987 and the stock market crash then, which was probably now after this one of the quickest falls in the stock market. But what we've had here is that the whole economy is just ground to a halt. Not ground, actually just abruptly stopped. And suddenly we're all faced with the fact that our business models aren't working anymore. We have no income coming in, and we have expenses going out, and we have to manage our cost base very carefully to make sure we stay in business going forward.
Well, yeah, you talk about business models there and everyone having to reassess. I noticed the McLaren boss spoke earlier about how F1 is going to have to make some big changes in order to survive. And I guess the same can be said across the whole sports industry. Everyone is having to look at their models and assess how they can make them stronger, perhaps coming out of this.
I think we've all known for a long time that, all sport really, but football in particular and rugby to a lesser degree, is the model isn't a perfect model. We pay out quite high wages for our players. We rely on our supporters coming to pay to watch us and buy our merchandise, and to watch us on television. And when you suddenly can't put on a game anymore, you can't open your shop to sell your merchandise, and you just got nothing live to put on the television. Suddenly there's no reason for people to pay you. So whereas in other businesses I'm involved with, where you have a recurring income, i.e. you have a fee coming in every month or whatever, even though that fee may go down because of difficult trading circumstances, it still comes in. You can still budget for an income coming in. We've found ourselves in a position after I came back after the Harlequins game at the beginning of March back to Guernsey, and all the restrictions were put in, that suddenly we had no income coming in whatsoever, and that shows the weakness of the sporting model. So we all need to get our heads together now, take this opportunity to review everything that we do, from the way we charge for our product to the way we pay for our players and our staff, to ensure that we go forward in a much stronger position.
Well, yes, you mentioned the Harlequins game there, how quickly times have changed. I think just when that happened, we were about to go on sale with Bears season cards for the next campaign. And naturally, that was put on hold because of the COVID-19 outbreak and delayed. But I guess there is going to come a time when people want to start looking forward to happier times resuming. And of course, we do know that games will resume at some stage, and there will be a 2021 season at Ashton Gate.
Well, we do know that, and it will happen, but it's hard to imagine it at the moment because we have no certainty of when that's likely to be. So, our main priority and everybody's priority is to get through this problem with the virus, with coronavirus, get ourselves back on track, and then plan accordingly. And I hope supporters and the public at large realise, that our business is not alone in this, but we are suffering quite significantly in the sense that all we have is overheads at the moment and no income, and the biggest thing that we can do, the best thing we can do, and the only thing we can do at the moment is to make sure we plan accordingly. We eke out our cash for as long as possible, take advantage of the government subsidies that are coming our way to keep us in business, to just stay in business so that we can finish this season first and foremost, and then start the next season on time and take that all the way through and get back to normal. It's a difficult time, and a difficult time for everybody involved. And of course, what happens as time goes on, people start looking to blame different factions. But all I can say is that, in the Bristol sports stable, everybody's been pulling in the same direction. I've just been amazed by the dedication of the staff and the teams themselves to want to do the right thing. And yes, we haven't got there yet with every aspect of what we want to do, but we're getting there. And I think everybody will see the benefits or not the benefits as such, but the hard work that's going into keeping our business intact, but also looking after our community at the same time.
Well, you mentioned there about looking after our community. Of course, I know it's one thing that you've spoken for many years about, how Ashton Gate Bristol Sport is about supporting the local community and the local businesses, and in turn they support the stadium. And I think actually it's been one of the most uplifting things about this crisis, is seeing how Ashton Gate has become this hub, if you like, of activity. Immediately the sports bar was open to help feed Bristol's homeless. We've got Fair Share partnering with us and operating to use it as a warehouse, and from the beginning of this week, of course, it becoming a drive-through as a testing centre for COVID-19 for NHS trust workers. Is this coming together and being a real focal point for the community?
It is. I mean, one of the saddest days for me was, and I can't remember, time has gone so quickly and so slowly at the same time. But when it was announced that Ashton Gate, and quite rightly, had to close, I wouldn't say I had a tear in my eye, but I was very, very disappointed. That was probably the biggest down I've had during this period, because it suddenly brings it home to you that all the hard work that people have put in over the last 5 years or so, first of all, in building the stadium to give us such a fantastic facility, but also making it such a success from a commercial and a community perspective. And suddenly, at one moment, it was all bubbling away very nicely, and we were looking forward to events during the summer, like the concerts and so on. And suddenly it's like the door was shut, the keys were turned, no access, and all that hard work had almost seemed for nothing. But of course, quickly you change your track, and everybody involved and start making use of that stadium for better purposes, for higher things at this stage, at this point in time. And as you say, from this week, it's going to be used as a testing centre for the NHS staff. We've got the feeding the homeless using the sports bar. As you say, the Fair Share, using it as a warehouse and a distribution centre to take food out to the vulnerable. We've got a team in there, Boxy, I think they're called, who are packaging up food for some vulnerable, foster children. There's all sorts of things going on, and it's just typical of Bristol Sport and Ashton Gate and everybody that's involved there. They want to do good for the community, and they're putting a lot of hard work into it. And I'm sure there'll be more, projects coming along. But just like our foundations as well. I mean, suddenly, we can't ignore them when we're looking at the business, because, they suddenly had a situation where they were in schools, they were given lessons, they were doing great educational programs, and suddenly those have had to stop, or certainly be scaled right back because of the virus. But now the initiative is there. They're doing online courses and fun and games and everything else to keep the spirits up, to keep the morale up, and actually to keep the kids educated and occupied. So there's so much going on, and I've always said this on the community front, and it was the last piece of the jigsaw we put together when put into the business plan. But it's the most important, in the sense that it's the thing for the long term. It's a legacy we all want to leave, is that Bristol Sport is putting things back into the community and is working hard to make that happen. And just the initiative and the innovation of the people involved is so fantastic to observe that you just can't help but admire and feel very proud of what they're doing.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, I was one of the staff that effectively, locked up Ashton Gate as we left on that Friday. And like you say, I agree, it seems so much longer than it was. It was just the end of March. I agree. It was quite a profound moment, but it was actually an incredible moment in terms of where the staff came together. Where you were reflecting about all of the various things that have now come on. The most positive thing, whilst it brings a tear to your eye to shut the business, to actually have numbers of staff coming and saying, "What can we do? How can we help?" I know Chef George, just one of many that has come up with ideas as to how, and he wants to be able to cook for various school children that would normally have had healthy school meals. We're looking at those projects. There are so many areas where people have come out and said how they can help. And of course, the players as well. We talk about our businesses grinding to a halt, players that are having to stay in elite physical fitness form, but actually having to do it in very constrained environments. And okay, some are better off than others and have home gyms, but some are, some of the Bears players we've seen from their Corona cribs. I don't know if you've caught those, Steve, but the look-see at the guys living in their flats, some of them sharing, trying to have a bit of a laugh and provide some light-hearted relief, because I think that's a really important part of this is the mental health well-being as well.
Well, absolutely, and it's all about keeping in touch, isn't it? And that's again what we've been very good at, and full marks to our social media team as well, that keep these things ticking along and thinking about ideas to amuse us, if you like, but also just keeps us in touch and lets people know that we're there and we care. I mean, the fact that we're still sending out, we're making sure we send out birthday greetings to people. If people have obviously in this environment there are very sort of tragic moments, and I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning it, but Corey Smith doing a specific video for a widow of a coronavirus victim who was grieving in isolation, just to help her get through that time. It says so much for the players and the people involved in our sports, and I can't be more proud of the way we deal with all these things and keep thinking of others as much as ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it's right to reference those as well, those players, because of course everyone's reading, everyone is spending so much more time on social media and digesting the news of the moment. And of course, particularly you've mentioned football there, have come in for quite a hard time. And actually a lot of the players are very much getting frustrated with, they want to do more. I mean, certainly in our sporting group, a lot of them are doing things behind the scenes, which we're not shouting about, but actually, sometimes it does feel slightly unfairly represented.
The reality is that, and I stress this, that we're now at the beginning of April. Payday for April is not until a few weeks away. Things are happening, discussions need to take place. We're talking about people's livelihoods here. We're talking about people's contracts that they've got with the football club, with the rugby club. We're talking with regard to employment contracts. It's not just a question of saying, oh, so and so will take a cut, or so and so will do this, or so and so will do that. We have to go through a procedure. We have to negotiate all these things. We have to talk about it, and there'll be certain people who, by doing that, it creates great hardship for themselves and their family, and we don't want to be doing that either. We need to be playing fair with everybody in the organisation, all the way through from top to bottom, to ensure that if they can make a gesture, and they want to make a gesture, that we help them to do that. If they're struggling at the other end of it, that we look after them and make sure they're not being asked to do something they can't afford to do. So there's a lot of care and attention that has to be given to all these aspects, which is easy to quote in an interview or in a newspaper article. Making it happen is another matter. And I just know from my experience with our players and our staff that people are so keen to do something and things will happen, but they don't always happen immediately, because you have to plan them in. But as I said, we're only at the beginning of April. By the end of April, all these things will have come to play and no doubt be announced or will be out there in the media somewhere.
Yeah, and as you say, it seems incredible. We are just only, almost 10 days, 2 weeks into this crisis, and this is very much a marathon. You talk about the sporting group there, and we've mentioned briefly the footballers. Of course, rugby have been doing their various things. We've seen the Shave and Donate for the COVID-19 research from them. I do want to make one special mention, though, of, and I don't know if you caught it, but was Simi Pam, who is the prop for Bristol Bears women, and she is a doctor as well, a full-time doctor as well, and I think her video gained so much traction for just her preparation. It really brings home the fact that how the NHS are just calling on people to please obey the warnings and to stay home and stay safe, so that people like Simi can go out and care for our loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, people like Simi, I mean, you can't speak highly enough of. So, and we're all very, very grateful for the job that she does, and her colleagues do as well. So, thank you sounds inadequate, but that's all I can say on behalf of all of Bristol Sport and my family and everything else that benefit from the NHS and what the carers do in society. I think that it's such a big part of, and again, it's an illustration of how sport is at the centre of the community as well, but also the sport encompasses all walks of life. And I think the thing that has come home to me, and this is not really a sporting connotation really, although it's going to be linked that way, is that you often say when you're going through a bad patch with one of your teams and you lose a game, it's not winning the games that make you better, or you can tell how good your people are and the character of your team. It's when you lose and you get into a bad patch and you get through it. And as a nation now, as not just a nation, lots of nations are in that situation where suddenly, they're finding out who the true heroes are. And that's where the NHS and all the social care workers and people involved in looking after us and making our lives better and protecting us in these circumstances, that's where they come to the fore. That's when you realise how valuable they are. And we shouldn't ever forget that. That's the point. After when all this has died down, we shouldn't just go back to where we were. We should make sure that we look after them properly, that the systems are in place to run the NHS and other organisations well, for the benefit of the employees within those organisations, and for the benefit of the public at large. And again, on behalf of Bristol Sport and all associated companies and people involved with Bristol Sport, thank you very much for everything that everybody's doing there.
Yeah, indeed. We can all echo those thoughts. Steve, it's great to talk to you. We've talked about a bit of time to reflect. I'm sure you've been catching up a few of the replays of the various games. It's nice watching games where we actually know the outcome. I definitely don't lose so many fingernails. Of course, Tuesday night, Swindon Town review.
Yes, I can remember that game quite well because we played Swindon at their place earlier in the season. There was a lot of controversy. I think it was Wade Elliott got sent off, which was debatable, and there was a lot of aggravation between the two teams. It was a very competitive local derby. We lost there, so we were out for revenge on that night, and we took it well, and we went on to be successful. And I think one of those. I've watched a number of the replays that have been put on because I think it's quite fun looking back. And as you say, when you know the results, it's a lot easier to watch. But yes, it was a hard fought game, and but a great one for us. And this is what sport's about. It makes you feel good. It brings people together. It makes the city happy, and that's what it's all about. And we want to sooner we get back to doing that, the better. We don't know when that's going to be, but it will happen. And I think all I would ask people to do is just look after yourselves, be safe, obey all the rules, and just be ready for when the green light comes back on again, and we can get back out there supporting our teams, enjoying our sport, and enjoy being together again.
Indeed, let's look forward to that. Steve Lansdown, thanks very much. Good to speak to you. Well, talking about being together again, of course, we can all still stay connected virtually through the power of our social media platforms. Do stay across all of the social channels. As we've mentioned, Bristol City will be taking on Swindon Town on Tuesday night. And at the end of the week, you can look forward to Bristol Bears versus Bath, reliving that opening day victory. So watch out for that one. And the Bristol Flyers, they've been putting out skills challenges to keep young ones and older ones in touch and fit at home. Well, Josh Rogers is going to be taking you through a shooting challenge. If you've got any outdoor space, maybe make use of that. Of course, Panos Mayindombe had taken you through a passing challenge, which can all be done inside. And Daniel Adozi was doing his defensive footwork, which is all possible to do inside as well. So do stay in touch with us. We'll look forward to being back with you next week. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay home, and stay well.